going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time we're going to be talking about episode number 45, and boy do I feel really stupid. If you guys recall last week, I was referring to the previous episode as if it was the penultimate episode, and I was doing it really confidently and correctly. It turns out that it was not the penultimate episode. I actually am not sure when that is coming now. I want to say that this was the penultimate episode, but I could be wrong, and so I'm going to be careful from now on before I make any confidently incorrect statements like this again, because once again I just feel really stupid, so I apologize for that, and I will try not to make that mistake again in the future. That being said, what we got here was definitely a really epic episode to really build up to this final battle between Storious and Toma, and I absolutely had a good time watching it. That said, this is going to be an episode that's going to be a little bit more challenging for me to review because it was a very action heavy episode, which isn't a bad thing. I had a lot of fun watching it, but it definitely means it was kind of lacking in the story department, so therefore it's just a lot less for me to really talk about with the episode as a whole. But that said, I'll still break down the episode and talk about some scenes and some moments that really stuck out to me. That all being said, let's definitely dive into this episode and talk about it. We gotta first go over this opening action scene, which I thought was incredibly well filmed, but it takes place right where the previous episode left off, where all the riders have gathered together and they are about to henshin into their Kamen Rider forms, when suddenly they are joined. If you notice in the back there, we got Caliber there. Who could Caliber be this time? Well, none other than Sophia. Sophia actually decides to join them very last minute as a swordsman, and she carries the Caliber sword with her, so she ends up becoming Kamen Rider Caliber. And I absolutely am so happy to see this because not that I don't appreciate all the writers that we've already gotten throughout the season, but it just felt like there was just that empty spot, because you had that whole sword that was just was perfectly fine and it wasn't being used. Now personally, I was hoping May would be the one to use the Caliber sword, but I will definitely settle for Sophia as well, because I think as much as they try to make her look as very fragile as she is in the show, Sophia, it's very clear we've seen her in combat a couple of times, so it's clear that she knows how to hold her own. So seeing her as a Kamen Rider finally, I thought that was definitely pretty satisfying for me anyways. And the actual fight itself is pretty well shot. They use the technique to make it look like it's all in one take, and clearly it's not. And don't be going into this expecting it to have that like Marvel money, when it's like constantly switching from one fighter to another and they're all doing their own thing, whereas Marvel has, like, of course, the money to make the expensive CG look like one take a lot more fluidly. This show doesn't quite have that budget, but it does a good job with what it's got. We do get a lot of cool moments with all the Kamen Riders. Like, I think each one of them during this big opening battle gets a moment to shine, and I love how this is all done as the cold opening, because this all happens right before the theme song takes place. And after that, we get to kind of a game of death situation where they get into the castle, and then basically each floor they get to, it feels like there's just another stage waiting there for the Kamen Riders, for them to all fight them together. Not exactly together. See, we get the 4 sages that were introduced in the previous episode, and pretty much each time they come across one, 2 Kamen Riders usually stay behind, with the intention of hoping that Toma will still be able to get to Storious by the time they get to the last stage. But unfortunately that isn't quite the case, as Toma ends up having to fight one of them with Rintaro. Meanwhile, Storious is going through some weird thing where he's talking to his dead friends that we see from earlier in the show. It is really cool to see these guys back on screen, and this time as good guys, seeing what they were like before they became corrupted. And here Storious reveals that he never actually got corrupted, that he's always been like this, but that could just be the corruption in his mind talking, so it may not actually be accurate, but as far as he knows, he doesn't think there's anything wrong with him. He thinks he's been like this from the very beginning, but of course a lot of villains, they're really good at making excuses, and they're really good at lying to themselves, so this could definitely very easily not be true. That's something we'll have to wait until the series ends for us to find out, if they choose to reveal it, that is. We also then have him basically being visited by Luna, but not like directly like her coming to visit him physically. She's kind of projecting herself to him, kind of like the Force projection in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And she's of course trying to convince Storious not to destroy the world, but that goes about as well as you would expect. We also have May throughout the episode. She's kind of feeling useless because all her friends are in this giant epic battle, and she's just kind of hanging out in the bookstore, and she gets a chance to read one of Toma's drafts of the big book that he was trying to write, and she gets a little teary-eyed, but then kind of realizes something that we as the audience aren't sure what it is, because we as the audience aren't reading the same book that she is, but she realizes that she's gonna be able to help in some way, shape, or form, and that's when she leaves the building. We're not sure yet because unfortunately that doesn't get revealed in the episode. At this point in the story, it's kind of just action scene after action scene, so I'm really just going to be going over moments that stood out to me. They may not all be in order, so I apologize. One thing I thought was kind of cool was that during the battle, we ended up having the original Saber and the original Caliber helping out Sophia, but kind of in like a more mental capacity, not like physically being there, but essentially being able to help keep her afloat, because currently her, along with anyone with a connection to the Wonder World, is currently in the process of disappearing, with the end of both worlds kind of coming. And so it is cool that the two of them are able to help her stay in the physical world as long as they can. And then we also had what I thought was a fantastic fight scene with Ren and one of the sages, and what's really cool is that Ren actually kind of taps into Disaster for a brief moment and is able to kind of use one of Disaster's techniques in order to finish off the sage. This was something that I felt like needed to happen, because the entire time it felt like when you had Ren hanging out with Disaster, other than them kind of growing that friendship between each other, it never really felt like either one of them were really learning from each other. Maybe Disaster learning a little more from Ren than Ren learning from Disaster. So it is really satisfying here to see him using Disaster moves to show that he has actually learned a lot of stuff from their time together and their time training together. And it was also really cool because you had the Kamen Rider sword that was there, and it was, as far as I know, it was no longer functional due to the Wonder Ride book that goes with it being kind of destroyed, but they were able to make some good use of it last minute, right before it officially is now gone, along with every trace of Disaster. So it does seem like this move that Ren uses to destroy one of the sages is only a one-time thing, and we're not going to see it again. But regardless, it was really cool to at least see some kind of payoff from the Disaster storyline finally, go through in this episode. I do love how all of, I love how Ren finally feels like he's as strong as the other Kamen Riders, and we have the other Kamen Riders even acknowledging this themselves. I absolutely love that about it. One thing I also really liked, another standout moment, was being able to see Ren and Kento fight together again, because if you remember in the very beginning of the show, Ren really looked up to Kento, like really looked up to him. So when Kento was gone for a while, it kind of, destroyed Ren, and then when Kento came back, kind of as a villain, but not really a villain, but as an antagonist to Ren, you could tell that really crushed him, definitely deep inside. So it is really cool to see kind of both of them like coming full circle at this point, both of them being friends again, and then Ren still being able to look up to Kento, but realizing he doesn't have to just follow in Kento's footsteps, he can still follow his own path. I absolutely love that thematically. I thought it was brilliant. Very last, or not the last scene, there was actually a scene after this, but it was just kind of more generic villain monologuing to himself type of thing. But we do have May running into Luna, and for a brief moment, I actually was worried that they were just going to have May recognize that it was Luna right away, but I like how that doesn't happen. Of course Luna recognizes May, but of course May doesn't recognize Luna because she's gotten older now. She's no longer in the younger body. So I thought there was just that brief moment where I'm like, let me guess, she's gonna recognize her, isn't she? But nope, she doesn't. And yeah, so that's basically kind of all I really have to say in terms of summarizing this episode. I thought it was an excellent episode. Like the action in this episode, I think that's the one thing I can't show you guys without, you know, getting a copyright strike from YouTube. But the action in this episode was just so incredible with some of the ways they try to make it look like a lot of shots are single takes. I feel like this does a great mixture of both kind of the fun, flashy special effects you've come to get used to in Kamen Rider, but also some really good choreography as well. In terms of story, you know, not too much happens, but the very little that we get out of it does feel very satisfying and very earned on top of that. Overall, guys, another really fantastic episode. I definitely recommend checking this episode out. Episode number 45, I believe it was. But of course, guys, as we always say here, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think. So definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this episode. And definitely hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But guys, above all, just remember to keep it A+. I'll talk to you all next week.
If you enjoy our content and want to be a part of helping our channel grow, become a patron supporter. We have affordable tiers to choose from that offer a variety of exclusive and early access content, from audio files for all of our shows for you to enjoy on the road, access to our Discord community, and plenty of reactions, reviews, character breakdowns, and more. Check us out at patreon.com/A+opinions. And as always, remember, like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so anytime we drop a brand new video, you will be notified.